Hello my friends and welcome to my corner. Today I have for you the top 10 most influential films that I have ever seen. Now I want to make sure we understand these. These are not my favorite films, okay? That's a different list. These films are simply movies that really influenced me, that had a great impact on me. So that is my little disclaimer. Let's get started. Now the order that I'm going to be following with this list has nothing to do with priority. It's simply a chronological order. Chronological in the sense that I have seen these films in this order and they have affected me deeply at different moments of my life, from my childhood, as you're going to see, up to a few years ago. So that's the order that I'm following with this list. Our journey begins with The Never-Ending Story, that classic of childhood. I must have seen it about 1.5 million times at least, or something like that. Now, I grew up surrounded by books, so to me the idea that there was a book that you could read and actually get into was simply fantastic. Now, in a sense, I know that that's what happens with all the books that we read, right? But, you know, it's a very special book that we see in this film. And to me, the whole idea that you could actually enter this book was simply amazing. Now, when I rewatched this film many years later as an adult, having read the book, I was a little bit disappointed, and I noticed a lot of the flaws that were there in the film. I think this is something that happens a lot with childhood movies, right? We are not aware of those flaws when we are kids because we have other priorities. Then as adults, we watch them and we're like, this doesn't really work here, right? But it's still a wonderful film. I highly recommend it. I recommend the book too. And it's a film that still moves me, even as an adult. And yes, I still wish that Falkor existed. Next on my list is Dot and the Kangaroo. Okay, you may not have heard of this film. It's an Australian film about a little girl who gets lost in the outback, and it's based on an environmentalist novel from 1899 by Ethel C. Pedley. The novel has the same title as the film. Now this film mixes live action with animation, and this happened more than 10 years before Roger Rabbit. So it's something to keep in mind there, right? This is an important film in the technical aspect too. And what I really liked about it was the range of emotions that it includes. Okay, this is something that we don't see a lot in American films for kids. It's like here in the US we don't really trust kids with certain emotions, right? So I feel that this movie is very different in that sense, and also very brave. There are moments of great happiness, moments of great sadness. There are moments of fear that you'll experience, like the famous Bunyip episode. I still cannot get that episode out of my head. And there's of course the bittersweet ending that I will not ruin for you. So I highly recommend this film. It's very different from most at least of the childhood films that we are used to seeing. Some movies, as you know, leave scars. My number 3 is RoboCop. I remember begging my mother literally on my knees to let me watch this film because all of my classmates had seen it. I was a little kid, and my mother of course said, no, you're not gonna watch this film. This is too much. She had seen it and she had been, devastated by it. My mother finally let me watch it, and then I realized why she had said no. I actually had trouble sleeping for some nights after watching that awful scene where, well, I cannot tell you. I don't want to spoil this for you, even though most people have seen RoboCop at this point. Now, I think about it, and this is probably the first R-rated movie that I watched. So, that in itself is an event. The first PG-13 that you were allowed to watch, the first R-rated movie that you were allowed to watch. And as an adult, I saw it again, and I realized that there was a much deeper meaning to it. It has a lot of social commentary, a lot of religious symbolism. So this is a film that you can enjoy as I mean, you shouldn't watch it as a child technically, but you know what I mean, if you're allowed to watch it by your parents, and also as an adult, right? So there are a lot of layers of meaning there. So it's not really a film for kids, but the whole idea of a robot and all that appeals to kids, and there's also the allegorical way of reading it as an adult. So it's a great film. Now, See No Evil, Hear No Evil is probably the comedy that has made me laugh the most. And even if I say it's hilarious, hilarious doesn't even begin to describe this film. I watched it as a kid in Argentina. I have no idea why. When I saw it again, I was like, how was I even allowed to watch this? The humor is very raunchy. I don't know if it's raunchy by today's standards, if we still have standards at all. I'm not sure about that. But there's also profanity throughout. Now, I think because I saw a Spanish version, all of this had been toned down. So that's probably one of the reasons why I was allowed to watch this movie. And I think some of the scenes had even been cut. So, you know, it's a comedy. It's not really for children, but I watched it as a kid and I really enjoyed it. A couple of interesting things. Stuart Copeland of The Police fame did the music. The music is great. And also, this film is by the same director of Love Story, believe it or not. So, a couple of interesting things about See No Evil, Hear No Evil. Okay, next we have Halloween 5. And as you know, there are 11 Halloween films so far, and still counting, right? There's at least 2 more that are going to come out in the following months or years. So you may be wondering, Jorge, why did you choose number 5 specifically? Well, this is a very special Halloween for me because this was the first horror film that I ever watched in my life. And here's the punchline. I watched it in school when I was in the 7th grade. Okay, this was back in Argentina. I think we had already finished with the school program and the teacher said, okay, so I'm gonna go and get a movie for you guys. What do you want to watch? And we were like, a horror movie, of course, you know. The teacher took us seriously and went and got this movie for us. Now, the interesting thing is that Puritanism is not really a thing in Argentina, but as we were watching the film, and of course the inevitable sex scene came up, the teacher got up and fast-forwarded the scene, which I thought was very interesting because after seeing all these people getting murdered in all these horrible ways, you know, and nobody said anything, everybody was okay with it, then, you know, we have a love scene. Nah, you know, that's too much. We need to fast forward that. So my first horror film was Halloween 5, and that's why I included here as a huge fan of horror films. Okay, and number 6 is Seven. Okay, no, I'm not trying to be funny, it just happened that way, okay? This was the first film that I analyzed, and I did it for a paper, I think it was in the 11th grade. So I'm a film critic now, in a way, so I thought I need to include a film that I actually analyzed and that I watched with a critical lens, a critical view, I guess you would say. The acting is flawless, the cinematography is very appropriate to what is being shown, and the ending, I can only describe it as diabolical, okay, but it works within the context and within the world of this film. This film, Seven, is of course on IMDb's top 250 films. It's very high up in the list, but when I ask my students about it, most of them have not even heard of it. It's very interesting. Now, this is a very, it's a devastating film in many ways. It's quite a sensationalist film. I don't feel that films need to be like that in order to be memorable. Actually, these days I am drawn to quiet films, and some of the most memorable films that I have seen are very, as I said, quiet. Tokyo Story, for instance, by Yasujiro Ozu would be a great example, right? But, you know, this is really a sensational film in many ways. It is manipulative, but then isn't every film manipulative in a way? That's the way I feel about it. All films are manipulative one way or the other. So those are my 2 cents on Seven. I do not call Gandhi my favorite film, but if you ask me, this is the one film that I feel everybody should watch. It's one of the best biographical films that have ever been made. It received 8 Academy Awards, so this is a film that in the technical aspect also has a lot going for it. It is epic, it is compelling, it is inspiring, many other things. And of course the message is just this very powerful and timeless message. So, you know, it's one of those films that I feel, as I said, everybody should watch. I don't really know what else to say about it. Anything I say about Gandhi is going to sound superficial and it's going to be superfluous. So all I'm going to say is just watch this movie. Okay, so we have arrived at the more artsy section of the film. My next one is Stolen Kisses by François Truffaut. I discovered art cinema, if you want to call it that, in the year 2008, and my life changed completely. I had access to a library that had the classics, the Criterion Collection, so I started watching films like Kurosawa, by Fellini, by Antonioni, all of these, Bergman, right? All of these great big names. And Truffaut for me was something new. I had never even heard of him because I was not a film buff per se at that time. I do call Truffaut my favorite director ever. Okay, I know that is quite a statement, and of course there are shades to it and everything, but I think he is probably my favorite director, and of all his films, Stolen Kisses is the one that I enjoyed the most. Now, one thing about Truffaut is that he felt that life and cinema were the same thing, that they were, or they should be, equivalent. And you really feel that in Stolen Kisses. This film, I would say it's light, but it's not superficial. I don't know if that makes sense. Light, but not superficial. That's the way that I would describe it. It really puts me in a great mood. It really makes me hopeful. So that's another thing that I like about it. And it just appeals to the hopeless romantic in me. So I think that's part of the appeal that this film has to me. Now, the films that came after this one, that follow the Antoine Doinel cycle, are different in their approach to the character, and also in their idea of hope and all that. Things get complicated when you come to these other films. So keep that in mind if you do decide to explore the Antoine Doinel films of François Truffaut. Okay, so we get to number 9, which is Chungking Express by Wong Kar-wai. I love Asian cinema, so it was very difficult for me to choose one film to represent that whole current, which is, it has so many, it's so varied. And I chose Wong Kar-wai because he is more or less contemporary, so I wanted to go for a more modern thing here. Chungking Express was a film that was made with almost complete freedom after the constraints of Ashes of Time, which is the film that Wong Kar-wai was shooting in the middle of this. Now, ironically, this quick film, because it was a very quick film, it has become one of Wong Kar-wai's most memorable. It's one of, a favorite with the public, with audiences. The structure is simply amazing. We have 2 stories that are thematically linked, but that's it. It's only thematic, right? And at one point, one character bumps shoulders with another, and then we follow that other character. So that's what I mean by freedom, right? It's a wonderful, wonderful idea here. It has great cinematography by Christopher Doyle, as most films by Wong Kar-wai do. There's lots of neon and lots of movement and stuff like that. And the music is also great and works wonderfully here. Look out for a Cantonese version of Dreams. You know that Cranberries, that song, that wonderful song. It's in Cantonese. And also get ready to listen to the Mamas and the Papas, California Dreaming, over and over again. And finally, I'm going to include in my list as number 10, Decalogue by Kieślowski. Okay, I know I am cheating shamelessly here because this is not a film. This is actually a mini-series of 10 films, about 1 hour in length each one. 10 Commandments, 10 films. Okay, it takes place in an apartment complex, so the characters run into each other, and the character that is a protagonist in one film may be a secondary character in another. And we have one character that appears in all of the films. He is a silent character that is sort of like watching the human struggle against evil in all of these films. Now, these movies ask a crucial question, to me, the central question of life, which is, how can you be good in a world gone bad? Right? This is the topic of these films. And I feel that they address the issue wonderfully without providing easy answers too, right? I would have to say that Decalogue is probably the most influential film that I have ever seen. So that's why I included that here. What do I mean by that? Well, after watching this film, I just felt like leaving everything I was doing, grabbing a camera, and making a movie myself. That's how I measure how great a film is, because it makes me feel like that. Okay, so that's my list of the top 10 most influential films that I have ever seen. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have not explored these films, I urge you to do so. Not all of them are perfect, of course. There is no perfect film. But I think you'll find something worthwhile in each one of these films. And as you can see, I try to include something for everybody. Some people like artsy films, other people like commercial films. So there's a little bit of everything here to sort of acknowledge that not all the films that have moved me have been artsy films, and they have not been all of them commercial films either. So once again, I hope you enjoyed my list of most influential films. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day.